Welcome back to The Explainer, where we love to break down some absolutely fascinating ideas. And today, we're diving into a really wild thought experiment that comes from the mind of Randall Munroe, the creator of XKCD. The question is simple. What if a baseball was pitched at nearly the speed of light?
Okay, so let's get right into it. Now, first things first, we're going to completely ignore how a pitcher could possibly throw a ball this fast. That's a whole other level of impossible physics. We're just going to say that at the exact moment of release, the ball just is moving that fast, and from there on out, the normal laws of physics get to take over.
And when we say fast, we mean fast. We are talking about 600 million miles per hour. That's a speed so completely insane that the ball isn't really flying through the air anymore. The air molecules in its path are basically just stuck there. And the results? Well, they're nothing short of spectacular.
So, you might think the first thing that matters is the bat or the catcher's mitt, right? But nope. The very first thing this baseball collides with is the air itself. And at these kinds of speeds, everything we know about aerodynamics just gets thrown right out the window.
Think about it. With a normal pitch, the air has plenty of time to just flow around the ball. It gets out of the way. But at 90% of the speed of light, there's just no time. The air molecules are essentially frozen in place, and the ball just plows right into them, head on.
And that impact is so unbelievably violent that the very nuclei of the air molecules, we're talking oxygen and nitrogen, they literally fuse with the nuclei of the atoms inside the baseball. What this does is kick off a continuous runaway series of thermonuclear explosions happening right there in the air, just in front of the ball.
And that right there is the engine of the entire catastrophe. By throwing this baseball, we haven't just thrown a ball. We've basically created a tiny, moving star. It's doing the same thing our sun does, fusing atoms, but it's doing it right here on Earth, unleashing just a ridiculous amount of energy with every inch it travels.
Okay, so let's follow this thing on its journey to home plate. You have to remember, this whole trip happens in a period of time that is almost impossible to comprehend. We're talking nanoseconds, a few billionths of a second.
With every single one of those little fusion explosions, a wave of gamma rays and superfast particles blasts outwards. This energy is so intense, it rips the electrons clean off the surrounding air atoms, turning the air in the ballpark into an expanding bubble of glowing hot plasma that's actually racing ahead of the baseball.
Now, here's maybe the most mind-blown part of this whole thing. That shell of X-rays and radiation completely engulfs the batter, the catcher, and the home plate umpire, vaporizing them before the ball even gets there. The batter literally never even sees the pitch coming.
So what about the ball itself? Well, it doesn't stay a ball for long. The constant fusion reactions are basically sandblasting its surface away. It pretty quickly stops being a solid object at all and becomes this bullet-shaped cloud of expanding plasma, mostly carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, that just keeps plowing forward, triggering more fusion as it goes.
Okay, so now let's zoom in on what we can generously call the impact at home plate. Because this is the moment when things go from a localized disaster to a full-blown city-level annihilation.
You can forget about the satisfying crack of the bat. It's not going to happen. Instead, that plasma cloud just absorbs everything. It scoops up the bat, what's left of the batter, the plate, and the catcher, and just carries them all backward through the backstop, as everything in its path is utterly disintegrated.
And this wave of destruction just keeps expanding outward with unimaginable speed. In a single microsecond, that's a millionth of a second, the entire ballpark is gone. The backstop, the dugouts, the players, the fans in the stands, and even the houses in the nearby neighborhood are all swallowed by this expanding shell of superheated plasma.
So let's pull the camera way back. What would this whole event look like if you were watching safely from a hilltop miles away from the city?
Well, the very first thing you'd notice wouldn't be a sound. It would be a silent, impossibly brilliant flash of light. It would be a burst of radiation so powerful it would briefly outshine the sun in the sky.
Then as that blinding flash starts to fade, you'd see this enormous fireball rising up into the sky, quickly taking on that terrifyingly familiar shape of a mushroom cloud. It's the visual signature of the incredible amount of energy that's just been released.
It's only after all of that, after the flash and the fireball, that the sound finally gets to you. And it would be a deafening roar, announcing the arrival of the shockwave. This isn't just sound, it's a physical wave of force, powerful enough to tear up trees and shred buildings for miles in every direction.
The scale of this devastation is just staggering. For about a mile in every direction from the ballpark, everything has been completely leveled. And the intense heat from the blast has started a massive firestorm that is now beginning to sweep through what's left of the city.
And back at ground zero, where that beautiful baseball diamond used to be, there is now just a crater, a pretty big one, centered just a little bit behind where home plate once sat.
So after all of this, after the plasma, the mushroom cloud, the firestorm, and the crater, after all of this apocalyptic physics, you'd think the story would be over. But no. There is one final and gloriously absurd question left to answer.
That's right. In the face of this city-leveling cataclysm, with the complete vaporization of everyone even remotely involved, what's the official call? For that answer, we have to turn to the official rulebook of Major League Baseball. Yep, you heard that right. Because the pitch, or, the cloud of plasma that used to be the pitch, did in fact hit the batter, he would be awarded first base, assuming, of course, that there was a first base, or a batter, or a planet left to stand on. And that just leaves us with a perfect final thought. You can unleash the power of a star on a baseball field, but in the end, it seems bureaucracy always gets the final word.